The war is far from over. Ito ang tahasan at nakakaisang pahayag ng mga humanitarian groups matapos ideklara ni US President Donald Trump na ang digmaan sa pagitan ng Israel at Hamas ay tapos na. Matapos kasi ang mga ceasefire agreements, patuloy pa rin kumakaharap ng pag-atake ang mga residente sa Gaza mula sa Israel authorities. Ano na nga ba ang itsura ng Gaza na iniwan ng Israel? Tapos na ba ang giyera? O ang tinapos ay ang buhay, kinabukasan at pag-asa ng mga Palestino? Pag-usapan natin yan. Ako si Rose Babiera at ito ang Point of View.
Pakikinggan ang bawat panig.
When you fight for justice, think about the queer people.
Kung hindi kami magkukwento, sino ang magkukwento para sa amin?
Ang mga panawagan, ipababatid.
Hindi talaga ito masusing pinag-aralan ng gobyerno.
The women who are beaten and abused. It's time to listen to their voices.
Tunghayan ang iba't ibang boses. Mga kwento mula sa iba't ibang anggulo. Dito lang sa Point of View.
Malayo man sa atin ang isyu ng buhay at karapatang pantao ay mga isyu na hindi dapat ipinapagkibit balikat lamang. Kaya para tulungan tayong mas maunawaan ang tunay na sitwasyon sa Gaza, makakasama po natin ngayong tanghali si Ms. Jepay Papa, ang Acting Director ng Amnesty International Philippines. Ms. Jepay, magandang tanghali po and welcome po sa ating programa.
Magandang tanghali din at salamat sa pag-iimbita.
Ms. Jepay, ito pong Israel at Hamas war has been going around for 2 years. Bago po natin pag-usapan itong mga kaganapan at saka sitwasyon at kalagayan ng mga civilian, which is our subject focus today, ano po ba itong pinagmulan ng hidwaan ng Israel at Hamas? Can you give us a brief background para lang po may konteksto ang ating mga manonood?
So yung nagaganap ngayon na kaguluhan is actually a genocide. Tapos yung genocide na to, ang backdrop niya is 77 years of apartheid. So it started hindi noong October 7, 2023 yung kaguluhan, kung hindi noong 1948 pa, kung kailan nagsimula yung tinatawag nilang Nakba. So it's a year-long conflict that Israel started and then eventually gave birth to the state of Israel. So from there, nagsimula yun, and then the government of Israel imposed the apartheid system against the Palestinians. So the oppression of the Palestinians has been ongoing since then. So yun yung background ng kaguluhan na to na currently nakikita o nasubaybayan ng mga tao in the past 2 years. So it's a genocide happening, hindi lang siya war, hindi lang siya conflict.
Hindi po ito nangyari noong October 7, pero nung panahon na ito yung nag-signal in our time talaga na nag-start nag-wage ng war itong Israel over Hamas. And ang unang-unang bagay po na talagang parang nakita ng mga tao na ay may hindi pangkaraniwang nangyayari dito. And nagsimula po nung talagang nag-start na yung Israel, apart from the attacks, nagsimula na po yung mga food, electricity, and water blockade, kung saan ang mga direktang naapektuhan po yung mga civilian at saka yung mga residente sa Gaza. Kung pag-uusapan po to in a historical point of view, ang sasabihin ng marami, ito yung parang normal retaliation. Kasi ito yung parang paraan ng war, ito yung language ng war, ito yung parang, kumbaga, nangyari ito noon and it's not impossible to happen again today. Pero in our present times, does our international law still allows this kind of blockades and humanitarian aid blockade kung saan alam po natin na yung mga civilian yung direkta talagang naaapektuhan?
So yung international humanitarian laws, pinagbabawal niya talaga ang direktang epekto ng mga kaguluhan against civilians. So, kailangan very clear talaga sino ang military, sino ang civilians, sino ang tinatarget ng gobyerno o ng armed forces ng bawat panig. So, dapat klaro na ang civilians ay protected at hindi harmed at hindi ginagamit, no? Or hindi nagsasuffer during the war. So, yung blockade na tinutukoy mo ng clean water, food, tsaka medical supplies, it has been happening 18 years ago, 17 years ago. So there's been a blockade that long happening. Tapos, tama ka, nung nangyari yung October 7, lumala siya, pinalala yung blockade na yon. Kasi exactly, ginagamit siya against the protected group, against Palestinians, para mas pahirapan yung kanilang mga buhay para, yun nga that resulted to genocide. Kasi the mere fact that you are making life conditions very, very difficult, for this, for the Palestinians, that's exactly the intent of a genocide. So, tama, ginagamit yung water, yung starvation, at saka yung pag-prevent ng medical aid and medical supplies sa pagpasok dahil ginagamit siyang weapon of war.
Nabanggit niyo na nga po na 18 years pa lang nangyayari itong mga blockades na ngayon lang natin na pag-uusapan simula nung pumutok itong digmaan between the Israel and Hamas at nag-intensify nga nung October. 2 years from now, ano na po yung kalagayan ng mga Palestinians sa Gaza na humarap dito sa mga intensified attacks at saka sa mga humanitarian crisis na kinakaharap nila ngayon? Ano na po ba yung issura ng Gaza na issura?
And so currently, I think 90% of their population is displaced. So there's around 2 million Palestinians doon sa Gaza, sa West Bank, sa East Jerusalem. So 90% of them are displaced. And these are people who have been displaced multiple times during this genocide and during their lifetime since 1967, 1948. Ganun na kadalas yung displacement. And kung makikinig din tayo sa balita, alam natin na 1 in every 3 na killed. I think there's already 600,000 people confirmed na killed.
600,000
na Palestinians confirmed na killed. And a third of them is children and women. So isipin mo, sino at ang kalagayan ng next generation, yung next 2 years, pero yung next 20 years, sino yung generation of Palestinians by that time na yun nga, nabanggit mo na nag-suffer ng displacement, ng hunger. So kung iisipin natin, ano nga ba yung magiging itsura sana in the next 2 years? Yung una, dapat i-lift yung blockade, Kailangan makapasok yung humanitarian aid kasi nga kung totoong tapos na yung kaguluhan, yung hostilities na tinatawag, dapat magsimula na yung paghilom. So paano ka makakapaghilom kung yung mismong physical condition ng mga tao at saka ng lugar ay hindi siya conducive para sa paghilom. So unang step dyan ay ibukas yung borders, papasukin ng medical aid, papasukin yung mga kailangan para mag-rebuild ng houses, ng hospitals, ng schools, ng homes. Tapos, i-lift yung apartheid system kasi nga, yung kwento ko kanina, yung apartheid system, siya yung discriminatory na laws. So, it's in their policy, it's in their practice to discriminate Palestinians. May kita din sa balita na nung nag-ceasefire na, may ceasefire na daw, yung mga illegal settlers were attacking Palestinians. So the conspiracies never ended yet, on the ground. So and then, dahil meron ng crime of genocide, kailangan managot yung mga sangkot doon sa krimen ng genocide. So that means kailangan maaresto yung mga pinapa-arrest na International Criminal Court and they have to be held accountable kasi that's part of killing, that's part of justice. Hindi sapat na may ceasefire lang, kailangan yung justisya.
So right now, ang nakikita po natin ay katulad po ng nabanggit niyo, 90% ng mga Palestinian displaced. Ibig sabihin, wala sa kanilang mga tahanan. And around 600,000 of them are killed. 1/3 are women or in the vulnerable sector. Ito po yung mga realities na kinakaharap ngayon ng mga Palestinian under the hands of the Israel. Alright, every time that Israel will launch a major offense, mga pag-atake po, ang sinasabi ng mga tao meron naman silang mga anunsyo na nilalabas na talagang pinapa-evacuate yung mga residente, yung mga civilian, di ba? May panahon po na yung mga nasa northern Gaza, sinabihan na mag-evacuate to the southern areas kasi they will launch a major offense. I think one of the major offense yung Gideon Project that they called na talagang titirahin nila yung Hamas. But then, at the same time, the Hamas are operating among the civilians. So, parang even the Israel themselves couldn't really point out kung ano ba yung sinasabi nilang aatakihin nila, yung mga tunnels daw. Pero eventually, later on, we saw na, yes, they asked the civilians to vacate to southern Gaza, but we've seen them attacking southern Gaza and the safer zones or the buffer zones as well. Kung meron talagang plano itong Israel na talagang i-preserve yung mga civilians in the war that is ongoing, ano ba dapat yung ginawa nila to preserve the civilians in terms of, lalo na itong sa evacuation, sa pag-displace sa kanila? Kasi, yes, displacement is an effect of the war, but at the same time, it should be done lawfully. Ano ba dapat yung ginawa ng Israel in that case? Kumbaga, ano po ba dapat yung SOP na ginawa ng Israel kung magdi-display sila, kung meron talaga silang pakialam sa mga civilian?
Kung talagang may pakialam sa civilians and Palestinians yung Israel, una, they should lift the apartheid. And they should pull out from the occupied Palestinian territories. Kasi that in itself ay mga illegal under international human rights law and international humanitarian law. And kung sila ay merong tinatawag nilang war or attack against Hamas or any Palestinian armed groups, kailangan din nag-follow sila sa international humanitarian law, which says na dapat ang mga civilians ay hindi targeted. At kung sila man ay magiging casualty of war, yun ay dahil dapat gumamit lang ng equivalent na force to catch, no, yung sinatawag nilang enemy nila, yung Israel, no?
Equivalent
force. Oo, meron lang yung force lang na kailangan, hindi kailangan ng force na mandadamay ka ng napakarami civilian, magpapabagsak ka ng napakaraming residential buildings and even hospitals. That's war crime, no? So evidently ang Israel has been violating various human rights laws and international humanitarian law even prior to this genocide. So naging sunod-sunod, tapos masyado siyang mapangahas kasi hindi ini-ignore niya yung mga sanctions ng United Nations, ng ICJ. So that's why it's ongoing. So yun, in the first place, Israel should not be attacking civilians and should also uphold their obligations as an occupying state doon sa pagmamay-aring lupa no Palestinians.
Pero syempre, ang nakikita po natin ngayon with the Israel authorities ay talagang dinedenay nila na it is an intentional attack to civilians because I think the defense is always and has always been kasi nga ang Hamas ay nag-ooperate among civilians at kumbaga sabihin na natin na if they're talking in Tagalog, nadamay lang. And now that we're on the subject, usually the language of war, hindi na po siya ngayon pinag-usapan. Kasi we think na wars are like historical events. Hindi na siya nangyayari ngayon. Kaya hindi po talaga pangkaraniwan kung tanggapin ng mga tao itong nangyayari sa Israel at Hamas. But now that we're on the subjects of like civilians and Palestinians being like the collateral damages, what can you say about this concept na hindi talaga may iwasan kapag may war, meron talagang collateral damage na mga sibilya?
That's why there are international humanitarian laws. So merong batas ang warfare and very very explicit doon ang protection of civilians, no? Na magkakaroon ng casualties pero hindi dahil siya ay sa kapabayaan at sa violation ng international humanitarian law. So yung very clear yon na meron pa ring rules, may conduct pa rin.
Yeah, that's very important to note na merong explicit parang points in the international humanitarian laws na talagang ina-uphold na if ever may collateral damage. I think that's ito yung isa sa mga punto na hindi parang naintindihan ng marami na kung meron mang civilian, dapat hindi intentional. Yun ang nakalagay sa humanitarian law na dapat Israel could have taken the measures to make it lawful na talagang hindi yung mga targets hindi targeted.
Hindi sila yung targeted. Kasi ano nangyayari sa ginagawa ay target nila yung Hamas pero at the same time, kung titingnan mo yung mga attacks, napakarami-raming civilians ang nadadamay. And even the infrastructures that's supposed to be providing care for those affected by war ay dinedestroy mo. So, ibig sabihin talagang may intent ka to kill all these people.
Yeah, especially yung dun po sa mga safe zones. Kasi parang, I think it is the law or the government who assign that these are safe zones. Opo. Is that how it works? Yung law po ba ang mag-a-assign ng safe zones? Or between the two parties, sinong nag-a-assign ng mga safe zones or buffer zones na yun?
And so may buffer zones, no? So may safe zones. So, tapos pag dineclare mo siya, kailangan nga nire-respect yun. Tapos yung kinwento mo kanina nung sa nung nag-announce na mag-vacate from north to south, was it north to south? And then parang in the same day, may official ng Israel who said that it's south to north. Yung pag-vacate, yung instance na yun na people are on the move for their lives. And then mag-a-announce ka, you're in the wrong direction kasi ito na yung zone na sinasabi namin you should go to. And then at the same time, attack the zone that you said that they would be protected. It's all against international humanitarian law. And it's a crime talaga.
At the beginning pa lang po ng pag-uusap natin, you already mentioned that what is happening in Gaza is a genocide. But a lot of institutions are in support of Israel, who are showing support of Israel, are denying this, especially the Israel authorities themselves. In the humanitarian standpoint, how can we say that what really is happening in Gaza is a genocide? What are the manifestations na we could say that this is genocide? Although, I would like to share na, I think it is Human Rights Watch who also declared na what is happening is not just a genocide but ethnic cleansing din talaga. So in a humanitarian standpoint, how can we say that what really is happening is a genocide?
So first, noong 1948, aside from Nakba happening, the Genocide Convention was also passed sa General Assembly. So there's an international law which states na ano ang genocide, ano ang hindi. And also, interestingly, in the same year, yung Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So, nasa ganung backdrop nangyari, no? So, yung Genocide Convention, meron siyang meron siyang sinet na 5 bagay na mangyayari. Maaaring mangyari ang alinman sa mga to or lahat ito para masabi mo na may genocide na nangyayari. So, yung Amnesty International sa report namin na nirelease noong 2024, December 2024, through the research, we found out that 3 out of these 5 conditions are happening. So, una, killing of protected people. So, that's the Palestinian people. And then second, inflicting bodily and mental harm, no? Very, parang malala na harm sa kanila, inflicting harm on them. And then yung third ay making their living conditions unbearable. So, ensuring that they will not be able to live through this genocide or afterwards, yung after effect would be long-lasting. And then September this year, the United Nations na to yun mismo ang nagsabi na genocide is happening. So all these 3 that Amnesty said, plus the 4th is yung deliberately preventing birth. So preventing birth. Dahil so ibig sabihin, you're ensuring that this race or this group of people
Not continue.
Will not be able to pass on, will not have another generation.
And this is what genocide,
Or genocide, the Genocide Convention.
The Genocide Convention is parang ito po yung nag-acknowledge or nagbibigay definition.
O siya yung basis. So, when Amnesty International made the research and other organizations, including the United Nations, they looked at these conditions and they looked at what's happening. So, that's also reviewing interviews, reports on the ground, and then validating information, and then cross-checking that with what the law says, and it's all check.
So, what really is happening in Gaza is genocide. Pero hanggang ngayon po, ang ulat ng mga Israeli officials, militaries, and even their president is they're not acknowledging, they're in denial, and they're on defense that what they did is just a retaliation. I think isa rin po kasi sa sobrang parang nagagamit ng mga Israel na kumbaga pamato, ang Hamas naman ang naunang umatake. Kasi it was Hamas who launched the first attack on October. But then, the way that the Israel has responded shows that this is really genocide in their own hands. Alright. In terms po dito sa mga, ang care naman natin ngayon talaga ay yung mga sibilyan na naapektuhan, mga Palestinians. In terms of humanitarian efforts, dahil nagsimula nga po itong parang official declaration ng war, although hindi nga po noong October 7 nag-start talaga, pero nagsimula na talagang nag-wage ng war ang Israel. Started with the humanitarian blockades. How are humanitarian organizations working and operating amid the violence and the war that is happening? Ano po bang kondisyon na ginagalawan ngayon ng ating mga humanitarian groups just to send support for the victims?
Yung una, yung humanitarian organizations and the aid itself is under the protection of international human rights laws. So dapat they should be granted access, free access sa mga conflict areas to provide aid. They should not be attacked. They should not be killed. So many humanitarian workers were killed during the genocide, no? And I think Medicine Sans Frontier and ICRC, International Committee on Red Cross, had to stop operations this year dahil it's becoming more and more difficult to enter and becoming more and more risky to their lives to enter, no? So ganun yung sitwasyon na kinakaharap ng humanitarian workers and humanitarian aid. And ginagawang difficult ng Israel no kanilang entry, ginagawang criminal act ang pag-send ng humanitarian aid, like the Global Sumud Flotilla, yung kung nabalitaan mo yun. So yun, so difficult yun. And so yung una talaga, dapat pag itong sasabi nila na ceasefire, dapat i-lift yung blockade tapos makapasok yung humanitarian aid dahil precisely yung mga naging resulta ng genocide, humanitarian relief yung kailangan nila ngayon. Sapat na pagkain, malinis na tubig, medical aid, even tents. Yung iba sa kanila natutulog out in the open, nasa harsh conditions, umulan, umaraw, maging taglamig. And yung mga may kailangan ng medical attention, no, mabigyan agad ng medical attention. Bukod sa ma-rebuild unti-unti yung kanilang community, yung kanilang buhay. And of course, sa lahat ng yon mahalaga din na makagain sila ng compensation or reparation. I-acknowledge ma-hold to account yung mga may kasalanan, para sila din ay magkaroon ng yung reparation yan, no? Compensation para doon sa harms done to Palestine.
So ngayon po, nakakapasok na ba yung mga aid ngayon?
Nagpapapasok na, pero we don't think that it's enough. No, it's still being controlled. So before pumasok yung Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, yung GHF, there were 400 distribution points. Tapos yun ay hindi hawak ng military. No? Nung pumasok pong Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, naging military yung pamamaraan ng distribution. From 400 distribution points, naging 4 na lang na control nila. Tapos
distribution points meaning parang mga access points po kung saan sila nakapasok.
Distribution ng pagkain, ng tubig. So, ganun yung nangyari. So, hanggang ngayon, hindi pa nakakapasok yung kakailanganin, yung matapatan man lang yung sapat na pangailangan nila para sa humanitarian aid.
Yeah, and I think videos and pictures are parang showing true to how humanitarian crisis is really happening kasi nakita po natin yung mga, titignan mo pa lang dun sa mga video na the condition, sabi niyo po harsh condition, na parang wala talagang buhay na, parang they can't produce food for themselves anymore. Kasi the only key if you're being locked up in a place is to be self-sufficient.
Totoo.
Diba? Parang in the little knowledge that we have, meron tayong itatanim para may kakainin, may mga produkto, may mga tinda, para support yourself kung walang manggagaling sa labas. Pero, if we're going to look at the pictures, wala. Parang, paano magtatanim doon?
Tapos, directly ina-attack kung mababata yung mga olive trees, yung mga groves nila, yung pananim nila. So, yung agricultural land nila is also directly being attacked by settlers, by illegal settlers yung iba. So binubulldoze yung mga olive trees. So that's their sustenance, so food nila. And alam din natin, prior to this genocide, na bebenta nila yan. And they were also not allowed to fish their own seas, no? Their own waters. So pinaprevent din sila, tama ka, na to be able to sustain their own lives through planting, fishing.
Kung makikita po talaga natin yung mga pictures and videos because that's the only access that we have. And I'd also like to mention na yun na, doon natin nakikita yung reality ng mga nangyayari. That's why there are journalists being killed as well. Kasi sila yung nagpapakita ng totoong nangyayari. Kasi when you see pictures, when you see videos, you cannot deny na kung ano na yung totoong nangyayari. Parang even though officials will deny that that's happening, but the pictures themselves will tell. Kaya dito rin nanggagaling kung bakit yung mga ganitong efforts to parang make the world aware of what's happening is also being cut off. We'll also like to honor those journalists who also parang tinaya nila yung buhay nila nung nasa war kasi there's really a war going on. In terms of humanitarian efforts din po, meron namang mga ceasefire agreements na mga nangyayari. Itong mga ceasefire agreements parang later on may mga palitan ng hostage at saka ng mga prisoners na papagkasunduan yung dalawang panig. Meron ding panahon na, okay, i-open namin tong border na to, magpapasok ng humanitarian aid. I think it has happened, but then later on, it will come back to the retaliation and the fighting again, which parang kind of defeats the purpose of the ceasefire agreements. Paulit-ulit po itong nangyari. Pero if it is within your knowledge, paano po ba nangyari itong ceasefire agreements between Israel and Hamas? Like, what is the communication line between the two?
So yung nakikita nga natin, yung mga leaders nila yung nag-uusap. Tapos sila yung nag-agree, put in paper, yung kasunduan, ano yung dapat mangyari at hindi mangyari, ano yung mga deal. Yan, during the ceasefire. Pero eventually, tama ka, mayroong mag-violate. And usually, it would be Israel. The more powerful party in between those two. Ang missing dun sa picture is the Palestinian people. No? So, hindi nakasentro yung any ceasefire deal doon sa mga taong on the ground. Yung mga taong direktang apektado ng kaguluhan na to. That's what's missing in the picture. Parang usap-usap yung mga world leaders, yung mga between Israel and the Hamas leaders, pero lagi interest nila at absent sa picture yung yung buhay, yung dignity at interest ng mga karaniwang Palestinian. So
pero in terms of like this negotiations, meron po bang parang yung representative of the humanitarian sector in these discussions?
Usually, yung mga leaders ng mga state and ruling parties, yung mga nag-uusap. And tama ka, dapat binibring in yung mga on the ground, no? Aside from representation. So aside from the Palestinians themselves, ang mga nakakakita ng what's really happening, sinabi mo, journalists, yan. Yung humanitarian workers, yung mga human rights researchers. So sila yung mga pupunta on the ground and they have information and they can amplify, no, the voices. So not to represent the voices, but amplify the voices of the Palestinians kasi parang they became the eyes and the ears. No?
What does the United Nations play in this part po?
Kung titingnan mo, yung United Nations have been doing during General Assembly resolutions and sanctions. So even in the past. So yung fast forward lang, halimbawa last year in 2024, yung International Court of Justice, yung ICJ, so that's the highest court, no? Nag-order na, sinabi na Israel, you have to stop a possible genocide. Kailangan tigilan niya yan. So they said that early 2024. They said it twice again during that period. And then the United Nations in September 2024 also said na we're giving Israel 12 months to withdraw. no, to withdraw from Gaza and the occupied Palestinian territories. So that's including the West Bank, the East Jerusalem, and Gaza Strip. No, kailangan mag-pull out sila doon. Yan yung huli sinabi ng UN no September 2024. Pero hindi nakinig. Nakinig ba? Hindi, no? So finally, sinabi na rin ng UN itong September, genocide is happening, no? And yet, so sinasabi yan sa harap ng General Assembly, yung isang mahalaga din dito, aside from the United Nations being firm sa kanyang mga resolutions and sanctions, yung ibang bansa, other states who are members of the United Nations should also make a stand. Not only rely on the United Nations, but also make a stand on what their countries can do, no? Like stop arming Israel, stop trading with Israel.
And now that you mentioned, I'd also like to ask, like, how can international organizations and states, neighboring states, strengthen humanitarian access? Ano po ba yung halaga ng mga sinabi nyo na making a stand in this issue?
So yung mga international organizations, yung even ordinary citizens, nakita mo nagte-take action, yung Global Sumud Flotilla, ordinary people are taking action because their governments are not doing enough. So ngayon, dahil pinag-usapan natin, ano yung paniningil na pwede natin gawin sa mga gobyerno natin. So yun, una, bilang ordinary citizens, no, and even international organizations, dahil nga mas may resources din yung i-budget at mas may influence to call on. Let's call on our governments, our states, una, to stop the flow of arms to Israel. Kasi yun yung ginagamit nila, no, to attack the Palestinians. So hindi lang mga armas, kundi mga systems din of surveillance. So i-stop yun. Tapos, mag-call na kailangan yung Israel, i-respect niya yung sinabi ng ICJ na United Nations na i-lift niya yung blockade and allow the entry of humanitarian aid. No? So, i-support natin yung mga humanitarian organizations. Palakasin natin yung panawagan na dapat papasukin sila. So, para pag nakapasok sila, makasimula ulit dun sa tulong na kinakailangan ng mga Palestinians. Tapos, so yung iba natin pwede pang i-call sa ating gobyerno ay stop trading with Israel and Israeli companies that has been proven to be helping fund the genocide. So may mga ganyang companies. So sa report ng Amnesty International, one is the Elbit Systems. So kung matatanda natin, Elbit Systems, the Philippine government had a contract with Elbit Systems. So Elbit Systems is owned by Israel and it's supplying surveillance, software and arms, no. So halimbawa yung trade na yon, kailangan maging klaro ang gobyerno ng Pilipinas. Is it still going on? Are we helping fund this genocide? And of course, yung isa rin ay halimbawa or mga travel-related, no? Merong mga Airbnb, Booking.com, Expedia, na they have listings in illegal settlements. So that's helping fund also the genocide. So we can also ask that from the people to take action, and these companies, no, to withdraw from their businesses na nagpa-fund directly ng genocide. At syempre, yung mas matinding paniningil, yung sa gobyerno, no, na bawa, i-pressure natin ang kanya-kanyang mga gobyerno na tuntungan yung mga resolutions and sanctions ng United Nations. And of course, on our own, to stop trading, that yung trade na nagpa-fund ng genocide, and stop the flow of arms, especially bawa yung UK, US, o malalaking bansa.
And so insofar as the Philippines is concerned, have we made a statement? Have we made our stance in this issue?
Yung Philippines ay kita naman natin sa United Nations General Assembly, nagvo-vote siya ng yes for resolutions in support of the Palestinians. Pero behind that din, halimbawa yung about Elbit Systems, hindi pa rin nagka-clarify na do we still have a contract with them? Yan yung isa. And also trade, no? Yung sa trade. I think very vocal ang Israel na nakikita niya ang Philippines as parang makakatulong sa trade, no? It's either Filipinos going to Israel or Israelis coming to the Philippines. So that's trade din yan, no? So yun din yung isang kailangan tingnan ng Pilipinas. How are government projects helping support the genocide or even the apartheid, kasi kung bawa sinabi na wala nang genocide pero may apartheid pa rin na ongoing, and that has also it must not be supported also.
The United States has a huge role in this war that's going on. And isa po yung relasyon ng Pilipinas sa US sa tinatrabaho ng current administration. Do you think that has something to do with our stance? Ano ba yung nagiging the way we represent the Philippines in the same UN or the way we craft our statements? Do you think that also affects our stance?
In fairness to the Philippines, we vote in support of resolutions, no, for the Palestinians. And that's against how we see US is playing at the United Nations na nag-veto siya ng mga resolutions ng UN General Assembly. So, about correlating the two, I cannot exactly say na in that angle.
Okay. So how are humanitarian laws? We've mentioned earlier na may mga international laws na nalabag. There are the Geneva Convention. How are these laws or the laws of war being upheld or violated? Can we specify some laws na nakita natin na pwedeng ihain o ireklamo sa Israel?
Yung una, yung matingkad, yung Genocide Convention. Kasi nga, para kung sa Amnesty International ay naglabas ng research on it, even the United Nations, sinabi na according to their investigation, genocide is being done by Israel. So that in itself, yung Genocide Convention ay gamitin para ma-hold accountable yung Israel sa kanya crimes under genocide.
Crimes against humanity as well. Very parang resounding yan sa atin yung crimes against humanity. Yes. So how can humanitarian efforts, syempre, sabi nga po natin, nung umpisang nag-launch ng attack ang Hamas, meron din talagang mga sibilyang Israeli na namatay. And even during the ongoing retaliation, attacks after attacks, meron ding mga Israeli na nadadamay at saka na nabibiktima. How do humanitarians maintain yung neutrality while navigating these complexities and these political sensitivities? Or yung humanitarian standpoint ba kailangan neutral siya?
Bali yung Hamas din and other Palestinian armed groups who did the attack noong October 7, they are also accountable under international humanitarian law. So hindi lang the Israeli occupying forces but also these political armed groups, no. Dahil nga they attacked civilians, they also took hostages, and Israel has also been taking hostages, no. So both parties kailangan singilin, no. So kailangan napakahalaga sa international humanitarian law yung civilians, distinguishing civilians between armed groups and military. So dapat titingnan mo yung civilians, but also looking at the backdrop na bakit nga nangyari October 7. It's because of the apartheid 1967 and illegal occupation. So nasa ganung backdrop din yung pagtingin sa nangyayari na to, kasi parang nabanggit mo so may casualties and may hostages din yung Hamas and armed political groups ng Palestine. Pero kung titingnan mo din yung kung gaano karami naman and historically illegally imprisoned and parang hostage, no, by Israel, yung dami din niya. Kailangan may context din yung bakit ganun karami yung tinitake at bakit ganito yung sa other part armed groups.
Alright. I'm moving forward naman, Ms. Jepay, with our next discussions. sabi po nila tapos na yung gera, pero there are still a lot of attacks that's happening even after like one of the major ceasefire agreement that happened last October 10 lang. What should be prioritized in Gaza's humanitarian recovery? Sabi po natin kanina, ang parang datos na nakikita natin are around 600,000 and that are confirmed. Madadagdagan pa ito. And kung titignan natin yung buong parang populasyon, there are like 2.2 million Palestinians in Gaza. So that's like a quarter of their population stripped off. Meron pang natitirang 3/4, but these 3/4 are facing medical threats as well. Ano po ba yung dapat i-prioritize ng mga humanitarians when it comes to like the Gaza humanitarian recovery?
Yung una ay kailangan nung permanent and lasting na ceasefire para ma-ensure na wala na nga, nasasabi talaga na natapos na yung hostilities. Kasi habang ongoing hostilities, you're creating victims habang may pumapasok para tulungan sila. So never ending. So yung una, at saka para maprotektahan din yung mga humanitarian workers, yung mga true humanitarian workers, not the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, no? Kasi that was set up by US and Israel. So the true humanitarian foundations para safely they can enter and do their work, no? Tapos mauna talaga, tama ka, yung medical attention. So yung medical tsaka yung nutrition, yun yung unang-unang kailangan tugunan kasi I think more than 90% of Palestinian children are malnourished. Tapos yun nga, may nag-declare na rin ng UN ng famine. So kailangan una matugunan yung medical, tapos sunod yung kasabay dapat yung nutrition kasi para maka-live through ka do sa sickness, sa mga amputation, sa pati nga yung psychological impact ng war. Kailangan mo ng healthy na katawan. Tapos speaking of psychological impact of war, kailangan kasabay ng humanitarian foundation is psychosocial welfare. No, kailangan bigyan tugon yun. And these are parang hundreds and thousands of people needing that. No? And then start building the infrastructure to support this recovery ng mga individuals pa lang natin kasi the infrastructure will help the communities themselves. So that's houses, hospitals, and schools, no, at the minimum. And yung binanggit mo kanina, yung agricultural land and yung mga pwede nilang pangisdaan, kailangan din yung parang mabuhay ulit, parang magsimula yung recovery.
Kanina pa po natin binabanggit na kailangan managot yung mga kailangang managot. And you've also mentioned earlier na there should be compensations, reparations nun sa mga natitirang pamilya na mga nawalan, yung mga biktima na ngayon ayun nga po, kakaharap pa. Kasi we know that parang itong war, it leaves a lasting impact, especially dun sa mga naiwan. In speaking of like accountability, paano po ito magsisimula? Paano, we keep on mentioning na there are violations, there's genocide that's happening, pero paano mapa-prompt yung idea na may matatry, may mahahainan ng reklamo? How does this happen?
Yung una, yung ICC, yung pre-trial chamber ng International Criminal Court, released arrest warrants November last year for Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. So yun ay ma-serve. So ibig sabihin, katulad na nangyari sa Pilipinas, ma-aresto at ma-detain. So yun yung una against those two leaders. And then meron ding order yung International Court of Justice, no? So, itong sa ICC is to try the individuals. And sa ICJ, the government itself will be held accountable. So, there has to be trials, no, on individuals and the government itself. Kasi may tinatawag ng war cabinet si Netanyahu, di ba? So, hindi na silang dalawa ni Yoav Gallant ang complicit to this genocide. Meron pang ibang mga tao sa kanilang government. So, yun, yung pag-seek na accountability doon, and from there, makakapalingil eksakto ano yung mga kailangan, parang bukod sa magiging punishment, no? Doon sa crime. Ano naman yung magiging reparation, compensation o paghilong para or justice itself para sa mga direktang biktima no genocide. So, hindi siya one time off, hindi siya short term.
So, nasa parang yung bola, nasa ICC pa rin po, sa international.
It's a ICC, ICJ, and even the United Nations can help.
And we see naman na, yun nga po, an arrest warrant was already issued. So, we're looking at yung pag-rolyo no kaso.
And we hope that other countries who are members of the ICC will execute that arrest.
What can executing that arrest? And parang as a member of the ICC, how can we further yung action na yun?
So yung states na member ng ICC, they have an obligation to abide by the rulings ng International Criminal Court. And that's including yung obligation na kapag may warrant of arrest at natungtong sa kanilang teritoryo, they have the right and the obligation under international humanitarian law to arrest and ibigay sa ICC para ma-detain. Kasi kung halimbawa i-expect mo yun sa country na tiga saan yung that would be impossible. Oo.
So yun, at least we're looking at that for the arrest and the detention with support with the but yes, it's a long process. I think the Filipinos know so well how much of a long process this is. And yes, I'm moving forward to that on how can we look at that issue and then look back at our country, the Philippines. Ano po ba yung mga parallels na nakikita natin with ito pong justice system at accountability? Ito yung mga issue na malapit sa mga Pilipino. These are the very things that we are dealing. How do we make this conversation a matter of discussion as well in the Philippines?
And una yung issue ng Palestinians, no? Issue siya ng maraming bansa na kinolonya, katulad ng Pilipinas. At not once tayo na-colonize, di ba? Na hindi lang isang country, multiple times tayo na-colonize. And that have to hit talaga hard on people na looking back at our history, no, and the parallelism. Parang imaginein mo yung mga pinagdaanan ng mga of course, there was no genocide, but being colonized and occupied, no, ang ating bansa. Meron siyang lasting effect na yung iba nga nakikita pa natin hanggang sa ngayon. So I think that in itself, yung history ng Pilipinas, yung history ng Palestine and what's going on with Palestinians ngayon, ay malaki yung connect, lalo na kung titingnan mo sa din yung pag-value mo bilang tao. But paano mo binavalue sa sarili mo bilang tao? Ganun mo din makikita na sumasalamin ang pagkatao mo dun sa iba. So yung pag-unawa dun sa suffering that they are going through. And yung pag-alpas din from these occupying powers. No, makikita kung paano lumaban yung mga Pilipino, paano natin na-gain yung freedom. So imagine that also happening for Palestinians and how we can support the Palestinians in reclaiming their lives, their dignity, their land.
In terms of humanitarian efforts and humanitarian support, ano po bang estado ng pagsuporta ng ating gobyerno sa mga ganitong efforts sa Pilipinas?
Ang nakikita ko sa news, nasisend tayo ng humanitarian support, pero very little, no? Very few, very little. Tapos, hindi siya ganun ka-frequent pa din, no? So, I think that the government can also do more, no? The Philippine government can do more. Or if if we have limited resources to do more, we can pressure other countries that can do more, no, or support more yung pagpasok ng humanitarian aid. And of course, malaki din yung tulong na being vocal ng gobyerno ng Pilipinas at iba pang gobyerno na asking for the safe entry ng mga humanitarian workers, no, para makapasok ng humanitarian aid.
Marami pong nagsasabi pag pinag-uusapan itong war on Gaza na marami pong problema yung Pilipinas. Parang go within our area of concern first before we go out. And in discussion with that, we're also facing issues in the ICC with the war against humanity. Marami pa pong biktima yung sumisigaw, nananawagan para sa hustisya. And I think Amnesty International Philippines, Amnesty Philippines is very, the groundwork that you laid, especially with the war on drugs, is really there. Can you, before we end, how are we moving forward with that sa paghingi ng accountability dito sa mga parang, kumbaga sa sarili nating baryo na kung saan marami ring taong nananawagan ng hustisya dito sa same issue na pagkitil din ng buhay yung parang hinihinga nila ng they're asking justice prop.
Ayun. Una, gusto ko i-address yung narrative na sinasabi na ang dami na nga nating problema, tapos nakikiano pa tayo sa ibang bansa. Pero that's exactly the narrative na sinasabi sa atin ng mga who holds power. No? Kasi para i-divide yung attention natin, para i-divide yung kakayahan natin mag-care and take action on issues. So, yun, kailangan i-challenge natin yun. And looking at the Philippine situation, so while there's already an arrest, no, at nasa dahig na, nagsisimula na yung gumugulong na yung proseso doon. So, minomonitor natin yun, no, minomonitor ng Amnesty International how it's going on. Pero at the same time, hindi lang naman siya yung accountable, di ba? Hindi lang si ex-President Duterte ang accountable dun sa war on drugs. Meron din mga iba pa na kailangang managot at accountable na nandito sa Pilipinas. So, isang mahalagang panawagan yung sa Department of Justice, no? Na ituloy yung investigasyon, kailangan magkaroon ng justice para dun sa mga biktima ng war on drugs. At matigil kasi hindi pa tapos meron pa ring mga biktima ng patayan dahil sa war on drugs. So iyon ay matigil at malitis din yung mga nandito. Paganahin natin yung justice system sa Philippines habang nangyayari yung trial doon. So patunayan din natin dito na kaya din natin, no, na mag-seek na accountability, kaya natin ibigay yung justice sa victims ng war on drugs.
Huli na lang po, ano po yung panawagan natin bilang isang humanitarian worker sa mga Pilipino na humaharap ng mga issue na ito tungkol sa buhay at karapatang pantao in this very age?
So, si Amnesty International bilang isang human rights organization, no? So, naniniwala ang Amnesty International na may kakayanan at may lakas ang bawat individual. So, bawat isa sa atin ay pwedeng maging tanglaw para sa karapatang patao. Pwedeng maging liwanag, maging tanglaw, no? Para yung mga issue ng karapatang pantao ay una, hindi ini-ignore. At pangalawa ay na-address, no? Natitigil. Pangatlo ay napipigilan. Kasi kapag marami sa atin yung walang pakialam, mas nagkakaroon ng kapangyarihan yung mga mapang-abuso na ipagpatuloy yung mga ginagawa nila na nalabag sa karapatang pantao. So ganon muli, bukod sa may mga individual tayo na kayang gawin, patuloy din natin singilin ng ating mga gobyerno ano ang kanyang obligasyon sa karapatang pantao. Kasi hindi enough na yung tao lang o yung masa ang kumikilos. Kailangan ay ginagawa din ng gobyerno yung kanyang obligasyon para sa karapatang pantao.
Maraming salamat po, Ms. Jepay, for your insight. It has been really a very insightful discussion. Thank you so much po.
Maraming salamat din at naimbitahan kami para sa pag-uusap natin.
Maraming salamat po. And that has been Ms. Jepay Papa, the Acting Director of Amnesty International Philippines. Muli ako po si Rose Babiera. Samahan niyo po akong muli sa susunod na linggo para pakinggan ng iba't ibang boses, mga kwento mula sa iba't ibang anggulo. Dito lang sa Point of View.